Hi guys, I just want to give you a quick intro for Chapter 5. So Chapter 5 is all about demand, and the first major concept we're going to come up in Chapter 5 is the concept of utility. Now, utility is basically the same thing as benefit, and this concept of marginal utility is no different than marginal benefit. So if you remember in Chapter 1, we did mental auctions to kind of figure out what our dollar value of our benefit was from certain activities. Well, utility is basically the same thing. It's just some nebulous, weird number that doesn't have any real relation. So the easiest thing that I do to remember utility is I just think of it as my marginal benefit in dollar terms. So if I get $50 of benefit out of, say, eating a great meal, then I would say my utility is 50. You could alternatively make it be cents. So $50 would be 5,000 cents. Say, okay, I value this meal at 5,000 utils, and every util would be valued as a cent. And so really the way that I think of utility is just as a dollar value of money. It doesn't matter. If I said that my utility from eating a burger was 1,000, but that was also equal to $5, then there's no difference in me saying that my utility is 5 instead of 1,000. It's just relative, right? And so if my utility for a burger is 1,000 and I enjoy pizza less than a burger, then my utility for the pizza must be something less than 1,000. Similarly, if my utility or my benefit from the burger was $5, then my benefit from pizza must be something less than $5. So that's all it is. It's not a really crazy concept, but it can get a little confusing if you don't realize that it's just benefit. And if you put it in dollar terms and call that a util, that's no different than just saying my marginal utility is 5 or my marginal benefit is $5. Now, the second thing we got to talk about is this idea of diminishing marginal utility. And that's just the idea that the more and more you consume something, your enjoyment from each additional unit is less and less. So if I'm really thirsty and I got done with a hike, maybe my first glass of water, I would get a ton of utility out of it. I may value it at $20, so I would get 20 utils. But then my second bottle of water, I wouldn't value as much. I'd still be thirsty. I'd still want it. Maybe I got $10 of benefit out of it, but that's going to be less than the 20. And then if I got a third, a fourth, a fifth bottle, now this fifth and sixth bottle, I'm going to enjoy even less than the first and the second and the third. That's the idea of diminishing marginal utility. You have a discussion question asking you to kind of explain sometime that you've experienced diminishing marginal utility. And this can hold true for anything. I mean, people have cited, economists have cited that diminishing marginal utility is the reason that people break up. Because when you first date somebody, every time you run into them, it's just like magic and sparks are flying and you just can't wait to see them. Well, get together with someone for 10, 20 years and then it's like, okay, I don't even want to be in the same room with you anymore. When are you leaving to go, hang out with your friends so I can be alone, right? That's the idea of diminishing marginal utility. So that's the second big concept. Now, the other really important thing from Chapter 5 is the rational spending rule. I will do a guided example to kind of show how that works, but I just want to point out that the rational spending rule, the key element in that is taking the marginal utility and dividing it by the price. And so if the marginal utility per dollar from anything you consume is not equal, then you're not maximizing utility. And you should spend less on the good where your marginal utility per dollar is lower and spend more on the good where your marginal utility per dollar is higher. You can also think of this marginal utility idea per dollar in terms of time. So think about maybe I get a certain amount of enjoyment from watching a basketball game, and that takes me 2 hours to watch. And I get a different amount of enjoyment from watching an episode of Batman, okay, the old 1960 Batman show, which takes only 30 minutes to watch. And so let's say I get 500 utils from a 2-hour basketball game. 500 divided by 2, that's 250 utils per hour. And let's say I get 50 utils from watching the Batman show. And so that's only half an hour. So if I take 50 utils divided by 1/2, that'll give me 100 utils per hour of watching Batman. And so since my utils per hour are higher of watching basketball, I'm better off watching basketball than watching Batman. So you can also kind of manipulate that rational spending rule to think about time as well. And then the last thing that's kind of important in this chapter is understanding the difference between kind of market demand and individual demand, and realizing that market demand is just the sum of the individual demand. And so however many people demand a good at a certain price, then you would just add up all of their demand at, say, 10 cents, and that would be the market demand. And then take all of their demand at 20 cents, and that would be the market demand at 20 cents. And then take how many they would want at 15 cents, and that'll be the market demand at 15 cents. So individual demand, just add up every individual's demand at every price, and then that'll give you the market demand. And the last thing we have to cover in this chapter is the idea of consumer surplus. And for that, you just have to understand where the triangle is. It's the area below the demand curve, but above the price. And then you have to know how to calculate the area of a triangle. And that formula is 1/2 base times the height. So make sure you're looking through your book, you're able to do these examples, because those are the types of questions that are going to pop up on the chapter 4 and 5 homework. All right.